Hello, Diane here. And this quilt means more than just a finished quilt, a finished piece. Margaret made it at my Eryri retreat last month, but last year she was too unwell to sew at all, and barely sewed a thing. So to see her this year come back, sit at her machine, be so enthusiastic to just get on with it and quietly work her way through it, oh, it stayed with me. And she finished it and wonderful and had ideas and was trying it all. And that's why it's not all about the quilt. It's about finding your way back to something that makes you feel like yourself again. Now, I know there's going to be people watching this who recognise that feeling. I mean, all of us really, who sew in any form. You might not have sewn for a while maybe, or you've got projects waiting and you're just not quite sure how to start again, how to fit it in. And that's exactly why I created myself Patchwork Play, not a quilt. It's a quiet, supportive online space where you can come back to sewing in your own time. There's no big pressure, there's no fast pace, there's no big expectations, just small, steady steps, which is often the hardest part, keeping it slow and sustainable. So if this story strikes a chord with you, you'll be very welcome to join us. And so for now, I'll leave you to watch the video and learn all about Margaret. Hello, Diane here from Stitchcape, and I am here today to talk about Margaret's Christmas quilt, even though it is currently Easter Sunday, 2026. Before I go into any talking about the quilting on this Christmas quilt, just a little mention about the human behind it, not me. Margaret made this quilt at the retreat in March, well, last month. We ran in Conway, in the Conway Valley, myself and Carrie. And the whole quilt was made at the retreat by Margaret, which was fabulous news. Yes, if anybody does that, it's great. But the fact that Margaret did it was even better, because Margaret has been on every retreat I've run. And last year on the equivalent one, in the same hotel in the Conway Valley, Margaret wasn't very well at all and couldn't really focus on her sewing. So this year, for her not only to have had her health concerns dealt with, and she was just buzzing. She was back to full-on Margaret, and it was wonderful. And so she made this whole quilt in our 4 days that we were there, and several other things she went on to do. She cut out the fabric, she sewed them together. We had, spent a little bit of time choosing the layout, which is often a good thing to do with company, isn't it? Because when we're trying to do it on our own, it can sometimes feel a little bit daunting, or we worry that we're going to miss something. Now, Margaret is a bit cross with herself because she has missed one little section where she's put two fabrics of the same together. But you know what? We all inspect our quilts. We're all going to find something, aren't we? But the thing I'm focusing on is that Margaret was back to her full self, and she was in her power, and she made this quilt. And she made the binding out of the rest of the jelly roll that she had. And I'm going to apply that for her as well. And she got this this red fabric, which is also the backing, as you can see here. She got that from Carrie, because Carrie runs her own business called Bright Quilting in Llangollen, and she was co-organising the retreat with me. So there's that story from the get-go. Never mind the fact that she's made a lovely quilt for her family, or for her sofa. And that I love that. That's the stories I like. That's what I love doing about this, the people it brings into my world, the sassy, the creative, the bold, the intelligent, the funny, people that it brings into my life, that's the thing I love the most. Yes, I love doing the work, the patchwork and the quilting and all those different designs and all the sewing. I love all that, of course, but obviously the people for me are equally as important. And I think people like hearing stories about quilts. It brings them to life. It makes them not just another quilt that you're looking at. It brings it meaning, I find. So that being said, I've nearly finished it, and I was going through it and I thought, oh, do you know what? Maybe people would like to see this and maybe hear the story about Margaret, and just get a feel for a quilt, and just try and appreciate when you do look at a quilt, there's often quite an involved story with that quilt, or just a simple story. But they're not just quilts. They are the result of a human being spending their time and their energy and their creativity and their money to do something that brings beauty and comfort to the world. So it doesn't get much better than that these days. Yeah, so I'm going to stop there with that introduction, and I'm going to give you a little bit more detail about it and talk through what I've decided to quilt on it. There we go. There's my little mate wanting to be in on the action as ever. I just think it's a bit of fun to bring into the videos. My friend Pam and client Pam knitted this for me. And again, there's a story to this little creature. But for now, we'll give the limelight. Okay, we'll give the limelight more to Margaret's quilt. Right, so here we go. Here it is. Gives you a bit of an idea. There you go. So there's large squares involved and some different sized rectangles in between each one. Making sure you can see those. There you go. And that's on the frame, basted on or pinned on, ready to be quilted. Now, because we have got these large squares and the rectangles, and of course it's Christmas themed, what I've actually decided to do is I've decided to put reindeers in the large squares, and in the rectangles I'm going to put holly berries. The reindeer designs I got from Urban Elements, and the holly berries were on my digital software called Pro Stitcher Lite. And I was going to do an edge to edge, which means that you stitch the same design across the width of your quilt, and you just keep doing rows and rows of them. I say I mean you stitch rows and rows of them across your quilt, regardless of where your piecing lies. And sometimes that's a good solution. But for me, I felt that these large squares, I wanted to have one reindeer in each square. So let's take you up to the Pro Stitcher. And actually I might just have to, I'll stop waving you around and I'll fix the camera so that you can look at the screen properly without all this wobbling around. Right, I just tried to get the camera to focus on the screen of the software, but you would have just been looking at a flickering screen. It's like filming a television. So I'm going to put the images of the designs here, and so you can look at them while I'm talking through them. First of all, we've got those reindeers, and like I said, instead of doing an edge to edge with them just going, the reindeers running from one side to another or close up together, what I've done is I've done 5 of them, because it's 5 large squares across, and I've distanced them. I put a gap between each one of the reindeer that's big enough to make it so that I have one reindeer per square. And then because that gap is fairly big, what I have to do is I have to start and stop each one and cut my threads in between, and that's fine. It still just does the stitching across the quilt, but with an edge to edge as such, but with big gaps in between them, and where I have to start and stop each reindeer. And the way the machine starts and stops each design is it does 5 tiny little stitches which secure them. So I don't do any burying threads. No. I do this when I'm doing free motion myself, or when I'm doing it on the domestic machine. I will start with 5 very closely stitched stitches, and I will end with 5 very closely stitched stitches. Not on top of one another, because then you'll just get like a knot at the back, but you move along, but you only move the tiniest bits, and they're only tiny. So the fact that they're tiny keeps them secure, but the fact that they're very close together also helps keep them secure, and I'm more than happy with that. For the quilts that I make, I'm not interested in burying threads. It just fills me with dread, the idea of doing that. So yeah, that's what I did with the reindeers. Now, in the well, at the moment, with the shorter horizontal, see, like there you've got one, and which one can you see? And there, if I move that out of the way, there you can see there's another. So those horizontal rectangular shapes that are exactly the same width as the large squares, what I've done in those is the holly berries. And again, it's almost like an edge to edge, because I measure the area from the top left to the bottom right of where I want those holly berries, and then I tell the machine that what I want in there, and I want the holly berries, and I want 2 above each square. So for example, in this one, I want just 2 holly berries. I think I'll show you a little photo of what each short rectangle like this looks like with the design stitched in it. And that's what I want in each one of those 5 rectangles that go along the top of each large square. And again, a similar method, I've put 2, and then there's a long jump pause, as it's called in the software. So I've got 2 holly berries, then I set a gap of a certain distance between that and the next set of holly berries, and then the same, and keep going. You have a gap between each set of 2 holly berries. I've put all that into the system to tell it what to do. And so that means, and in this case actually, because they're closer together, they're probably about 2.5 inches apart. And so my machine is programmed so that it doesn't do, I don't have to snip the stitches in between each design. It will continue stitching, and it just does the jump and brings the thread along with it. But it still starts the design with the 5 short closely together stitches, and it ends each design with those closely together stitches. And then it does a big jump to the next set of 2 holly berries, and on it goes, and in this case the 5 times. So as such, this is a continuous design. It is an edge to edge design. It just so happens that it's got a 2.5 inch gap in between each one. So yeah, and then what I'm going to do with these vertical sections that go, obviously they're vertical now. I can't, well, I could, but it's much easier for me. Once I finish quilting all of the quilt, I'm then going to take it off the frame, and I'm going to reload it after turning it 90 degrees, so that then, instead of being, those lines then won't be vertical, they will then be sitting horizontally across the quilt, and I can put holly berries all the way across. yeah, and then I will add the binding. Fun, 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 fun. It's blowing a hooly gale out there as well, so I'm quite happy to be inside doing this, to be frank. Yeah, so there's the little story of Margaret's quilt. Maybe before I publish this video, I will add the binding and I will show you the final quilt after I've shown Margaret. That might be an idea. Or I might just share this video without the binding on. But I think it'd make it a neater video, wouldn't it, if I added the binding? Oh, decisions. Anyway, I'm going to crack on and get these last couple of rows done. And yeah, I look forward to watching the next video and to doing the next video and seeing what the next story is about the next quilt. Yeah, so many quilts, so many stories, so many amazing women. What's not to love? Uh-oh, you know what that means. That means that something's gone wrong and I had to unpick it. What went wrong was, if you can see where the holes are of the previous stitching, the actual design was sitting too low in that section, which means what I had to do was I had to adjust this side of the quilt a little bit so it was just encouraged it lower, because all our piecing is different, but this one I wasn't happy with that going so low to the bottom of that parallel section, because as you can see that probably means a slight disalignment of the quilt, so I'm going to adjust this now. I wasn't going to just tolerate that, so I've adjusted how this side of the quilt sits on the frame, and as you can still see by this seam here, it's still sitting pretty straight. You barely know the difference, but I am quite glad that I adjusted that to make that end of the quilt slightly lower, and I'm going to tidy that up and restitch that rectangle, and that should be fine. There we go. That's it stitched out now. I'm much happier with the location of that. It's barely probably 1/8 of an inch higher, but it matters to me. Yeah, I want to do the best I can. And so there we go. I will leave this video here, I think, because A, it's getting a bit dark out there, and B, I think it would nice for you to see the quilt finished and off the frame, because I'm going to be, like I said, doing the binding as well for Margaret. So I will leave you for now to go and find your joy.